They didn't just walk away, they vanished, leaving grieving parents clutching memories, empty promises, and a silence so loud it finally forced Prince William to slam the door shut. Prince William blocks Meghan and Harry after they abandoned dead children's parents isn't just another royal spat whispered behind palace walls. This is about broken trust, exploited grief, and a moment so ugly it made the future king draw a brutal, irreversible line. This is the story nobody wanted exposed until it exploded anyway.
Breaking today, Prince William doubles down. According to multiple sources, it's now a matter of when, not if, he strips Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of their royal titles.
Her former title, Her Royal Highness, despite the fact that she and Harry stepped away from their royal roles.
The king might think that this is something he can do, but of course, he no longer officially controls Highgrove. Prince William does. And this was never going to fly.
About how Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are going to have no role when Prince William becomes king. And he's already planning this out. And it's really not so much that he said they are not going to have roles. He's just not mentioning them.
Because there are reports that Prince Harry, Meghan Markle and their children could be set to lose their royal titles if and when Prince William becomes. There are growing calls to strip Harry and Meghan of their royal titles. The New York Post is reporting that locals in the UK say enough is enough, especially after Prince Harry's disastrous BBC interview, which aired.
Your titles are gone. You're going to be Meghan Mountbatten Windsor. Your husband's going to be Harry Mountbatten Windsor. And all your threats of legal action, I think, is something that William will quite rightly stare down. But let me take you through. Harry and Meghan used those parents for this disastrous CBS News interview. And now, because they're on the bones of their ass, because I've decided to have this disgustingly extravagant lifestyle in Montecito, California that they cannot afford, because they are burning through the Queen Mother's inheritance, Princess Diana's inheritance, these parents are out of their life, thrown to the wolves.
The agreement that was made did not remove the title. It restricted the way it was to be used. It was not to be used publicly.
Prince William to change the monarchy forever. No titles for Beatrice or Eugenie. And she writes, Prince William is gearing up to become king sooner rather than later, I'm told. And his vision for the monarchy is going to look very different from his father, King Charles's reign.
They abandoned them. The parents of children who died by suicide. Parents who trusted them. Parents who opened up their deepest pain on national television. Parents who believed Harry and Meghan actually cared. And now they've been thrown to the wolves with just 1 year of funding and a corporate press release. But here's where it gets even more shocking. Prince William has had enough, and he just drew a line in the sand that his father, King Charles, cannot cross. Let that hit you, because this wasn't a scheduling issue. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a calculated exit, quiet, strategic, and devastating. Parents who had already buried their children were suddenly left holding another loss. And while they were trying to breathe through grief, the Sussex machine was already spinning its next move. You see, when those parents sat under studio lights telling stories they can barely say out loud at home, they believed this was different. They believed this wasn't optics. They believed someone powerful finally cared enough to stay. And for a moment, the cameras made it feel real, compassionate, purposeful, almost sacred. But compassion doesn't vanish overnight unless it was never real to begin with.
He's willing to cut a limb in order to save the body. He's willing to even sacrifice the titles of his children in order to clean the Windsor house, because enough is enough. And Harry and Meghan know it.
I think there's much of a relationship between William and Andrew, but I think Harry and Meghan should be shaking in their boots right now if they are not already. And they could have had the best of all worlds if they had played their cards right.
In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you the pattern that commenters have exposed, the Ayers investigation that's allegedly forcing their hand, and why this moment might save the British monarchy from complete collapse. Because what Harry and Meghan did to these grieving families, it's not just cruel, it's a window into who they really are. Let's get into it. First, let me tell you about the Parents Network. This was supposed to be Harry and Meghan's big humanitarian project, a charity supporting parents who lost children to online online harm, cyberbullying, and suicide. The Parents Network was sold as the soul of their mission. The proof that this wasn't about bitterness or revenge or fame, this was meant to be redemption, healing, a second act built on empathy. And parents believed it because they needed to. When you lose a child, hope doesn't knock politely, you grab it wherever it appears. Then came the interview.
In the past few hours, confirmation that they have walked from another charity. Their lives, which were meant to be about humanitarian projects, post-Megxit, are over. And this one will sting. And it will especially sting for the parents of the children who died by suicide who trusted them.
These are families living through the absolute worst nightmare imaginable. Summer 2024, Harry and Meghan give CBS News an exclusive interview. Harry looks into the camera and warns about the dangers social media poses to children. Meghan sits beside him, nodding with concern. They introduce these parents. Real people, real pain, real loss. The message was clear. We're here for you. We care. We're going to make a difference. Fast forward to January 2025. Newsweek breaks the story. The Parents Network has been quietly handed over to another organization called Parents Together. And here's the kicker. Archewell, Harry, and Meghan's foundation gave them just 1 year of funding to cover operations. Quietly. No warning. No emotional goodbye. Just paperwork and distance. 1 year. That's all grief was worth once the cameras shut off.
Newsweek understands Archewell has given Parents Together the network's full operational capacity and structure, including systems and processes, as well as brand and creative assets.
Wait, 1 year for a charity supporting parents who lost children to suicide? 1 year of funding. Let that sink in. 1 year is not sustainability. It's a countdown. And the spin came fast, slick, and soulless. Corporate language designed to sound visionary while erasing responsibility. Incubation, transition, independence. Fancy words for we're done. And that's when people started noticing something uncomfortable. A pattern. Because this wasn't the first time a cause was embraced, showcased, and then quietly discarded once it stopped serving its purpose.
An Angela Levin exclusive. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are hurt, worried, and angry with Prince William.
Yes, they're very cross, and they feel that they should have been taken and told what was going on. Now, the discussion was, as we've talked about before, is that William went over to Paris, and there he had a long chat with President-elect Trump. Yeah. They were both furious. Harry thought he should be, he's one of the royal. Meghan, if you remember, she absolutely couldn't stand Trump. And I think, it's not their business, is it? You can't just actually tip your finger in and say who William can talk to and who he can't. In fact, William did it very well.
They used those grieving families to advance their image. Reprehensible. These parents trusted them. They shared their stories. They appeared on CBS, and now they've been handed off with minimal funding while Harry and Meghan continue living their extravagant Montecito lifestyle. But here's what you need to understand. This isn't a one-off. This is a pattern. Let me take you through the graveyard of Harry and Meghan's charitable ventures. African Parks, total disaster. The organization faced serious allegations of human rights abuses while Harry sat on the board. Cinderly blew up spectacularly. Now, the Parents Network abandoned after less than 2 years. One commenter nailed it. Charities are their GoFundMe. And another revealed something huge. They're simply running from the ears by dumping their charities they were draining for their own expenses. Think about what this means. And suddenly, the whispers turned darker, louder. People weren't just angry, they were connecting dots. Why so many abandoned projects? Why the sudden handoffs? Why the urgency to distance themselves? And why now? Because while parents were being told to transition, Prince William was watching something far more dangerous unfold. This wasn't just about bad optics anymore. This was about integrity. And more importantly, about trust, the one thing the monarchy cannot afford to lose. When word spread that King Charles was allegedly preparing to welcome Harry and Meghan back with access to Highgrove, something snapped. Because Highgrove isn't a house. It's sanctuary. It's history. It's protection. And it no longer belongs to Charles to offer. It belongs to William. And William said no. Not quietly, not politely, completely. That no wasn't about revenge, it wasn't about bitterness, it was about consequences. About understanding that inviting people who monetize intimacy into sacred spaces isn't kindness, it's institutional suicide. Parents had already been used once. William refused to let the monarchy be next. And that's why this moment matters. Because this is the first time someone inside the family didn't flinch, didn't negotiate, didn't hope for reconciliation at any cost. He stopped it. Right here is where the story pivots, from gossip to reckoning. Because what comes next exposes the cracks between father and son, duty and emotion, forgiveness and survival. And while the public was still digesting the betrayal of grieving parents, the real earthquake was rumbling behind palace walls. Because Prince William wasn't just angry, he was done pretending this was salvageable. This wasn't a sibling squabble anymore. This was damage control at the highest level, and William saw the threat clearly. If Harry and Meghan were allowed back into royal spaces, back into royal legitimacy, they would drain it dry just like every cause they touched. Behind the scenes, panic erupted. Stories leaked, then vanished. Articles appeared, then were scrubbed so fast you'd think they never existed. Because someone panicked when they realized they'd crossed the wrong brother. Highgrove. That one word detonated everything. For decades, Highgrove was Charles's refuge, his soil, his sanctuary, his prayer-filled escape from duty. But power shifted. Quietly, legally. When William inherited the Duchy of Cornwall, Highgrove came with it. Charles may love it, he may live there, but he no longer controls it. And William knew exactly what that meant, because once cameras enter a sacred space, it's no longer sacred. Once private grief becomes content, it's no longer healing, it's exploitation. William had watched this playbook unfold again and again, and this time, he slammed it shut. Sources say his response was immediate, absolute. No ambiguity, no loopholes, no maybe later. The answer was no, and it wasn't just about property. It was about protecting Catherine, protecting his children, protecting an institution that cannot survive another public bleed out disguised as reconciliation. Meanwhile, King Charles was stuck in an impossible emotional trap. A father with cancer, a clock ticking louder than anyone wants to admit, a son he still loves, even as that son publicly wounds him. From a human perspective, Charles's desire to reconcile is understandable, heartbreaking even. But from a strategic perspective, it's catastrophic because Harry has learned how to weaponize timing, how to leak stories that create pressure, how to make things feel inevitable before they're real. And every time Charles hesitates, every time he softens, the Sussex machine takes another inch. We've seen this tactic before. Security demands framed as emergencies, decisions declared nailed on before they exist, public sympathy manipulated to corner officials into compliance. And when reality doesn't match the narrative, another leak, another accusation, another round of blame. The cruelty of it is breathtaking because while Charles fights illness, Harry fights optics, and he doesn't fight fair. That's why William's move mattered so much, because for the first time, someone refused to play the game. Behind the outrage over abandoned parents was something even uglier bubbling up: money, or more accurately, where it went. Commenters started asking the question mainstream outlets wouldn't touch. Why are these charities collapsing so fast? Why are initiatives being dumped instead of expanded? Why does every project end with excuses, restructuring, and silence? Then came the hour's whispers. No documents, no confirmations. Just a flood of consistent claims pointing in the same direction. Investigations, frozen assets, delays in approvals, charities unable to operate as promised. And suddenly, the pattern looked less like burnout and more like escape. If true, and again, this cannot be independently confirmed, it would explain everything. The rushed exits, the desperate need for royal legitimacy, the sudden urgency to reconnect with the one institution that still provides protection, funding, and credibility by association. Because without the royal connection, the American house of cards wobbles. Think about Invictus, the last remaining jewel, the one project Harry still clings to. Veterans, sacrifice, honor, and yet even there, murmurs grow louder about costs, about priorities, about who's really benefiting. Veterans paying their own way, families stretched thin, while expenses balloon around branding, travel, and optics. People are starting to ask whether Invictus is next, and William hears those whispers too. That's why he's hired crisis specialists. purpose, why he's reinforcing boundaries, why he's preparing for what comes next, because he knows his brother won't stop. And he knows appeasement doesn't buy peace, it buys time for the next demand. The public sees it now. They saw grieving parents discarded after serving their purpose. They saw charities treated like stepping stones. They saw stories leak, vanish, and reappear rewritten. And they saw a future king finally say enough. This isn't cruelty. This is containment. Because William isn't just thinking about today, he's thinking about George, about Charlotte, about Louis, about a monarchy that must survive a media age where intimacy is currency and betrayal goes viral. And then there's Catherine. That line, the one Harry crossed in Spare, that was the point of no return. William made it clear, family stays out of it, and Harry didn't listen. He monetized private pain. He made Catherine collateral damage. And for William, that ended everything. There's no coming back from that. So now the family stands divided by philosophy. A king who believes forgiveness can heal. An heir who knows some wounds fester when reopened. One driven by love for a son. The other driven by duty to a crown. And the public, they've chosen their side. Because at the center of this mess aren't palaces or titles. They're parents who trusted the wrong people with the worst moment of their lives. Parents who were promised solidarity and left with silence. Parents who didn't get spin rooms or press teams, just grief. And William saw them. He saw the pattern. He saw the damage. And he refused to let it spread. This wasn't about blocking a visit. This was about blocking a cycle. One that turns pain into profit and privacy into product. That's why this moment will be remembered. Not as a feud, not as gossip, but as the day Prince William finally said no and meant it. He said no and meant it. He said no and meant it. He said...